So, I asked you guys whether you thought the Dillian Whyte-Joseph Parker fight is pay-per-view worthy or not. 2.4 thousand of you voted, and out of the 2.4 thousand, 44% of you said yes, it is pay-per-view worthy, 25% said no, and 31% said maybe if there's a good enough undercard. So overall, this is a relatively positive response to this pay-per-view. I've seen far more negative responses to pay-per-views in the past than this. So this is fairly positive. Let's get into some of the comments that people left. Alright, let's switch this. Hold this first. Okay. Trevor L says yes, I'd be happy to pay for this. White deserves a bit of the money now. He's done his time. He'll fight anyone. This person says yes. Dirty Low says no, not in America unless they stack the undercard, but still a good fight. It is a good fight. It won't be pay-per-view in America. If they show this on television in America, it certainly won't be pay-per-view. So that's not something Americans are going to have to worry about. Black Dynamite says maybe if there's a good undercard. If it's £10, I think it's worth it even with a subpar undercard. I can't imagine they're going to do it for £10. Let's see here now. Daniel says yes. Firebrand says maybe if there's a good enough undercard. It's not a title fight. It better have two entertaining fighters and a great undercard. I like Whyte and Parker, so it depends on the rest of the show. Well, Dillian Whyte versus Anthony Joshua wasn't... Well, actually, no, it was a title fight, but it wasn't a world title fight. Dillian Whyte versus Anthony Joshua was it a British and Commonwealth, I think? Wasn't it? I think it was. So this fight, even though there isn't any British or Commonwealth title on the line, it's at least as high level as Joshua versus Whyte was, right? If not higher than that. Because these are guys at the upper echelons of the heavyweight division right now in terms of ranking. And one of them is a former world champion, so yeah. And when Tony Bellew fought Nathan Cleverly, look, I know most people don't think Tony Bellew versus Nathan Cleverly rematch was pay-per-view worthy anyway. That's fair enough, but that was on pay-per-view. Anyway, let's move on to some of these others. Badman Fighting says, any guesses to Whyte's purse for this fight? I'm not sure what his purse is, but as I mentioned in a previous video, David Higgins, the promoter of Joseph Parker, said that this was an 8-figure deal. 8-figure is obviously double-digit millions. So, is that millions in pounds or dollars? I don't know. But that's what 8 figures is. So, I don't know. Let's say it's 10 million pounds or something, or $10 million. I think more realistic. $5 million a piece, maybe split it down the middle 50-50. That's a big purse for Dillian Whyte. And a big purse for Joseph Parker too. I'm sure he got more against Joshua Joseph Parker, but it's still a nice purse. It might be his second highest, I guess, if that was the actual purse. I've got no idea. I'm just going by what David Higgins said at a press conference. Yes. The Kimber says yes. South London Jamaican says no. I would never pay to watch Dillian Whyte fight. He's a bum. Okay. All right. So I guess there are some Jamaicans in South London who don't support Dillian Whyte. Joe Blog says no. Best win between them is Huey Fury. Herner's brainwashed the fans. Put on so many shite pay-per-views. As soon as a decent fight comes along, they open their wallets and smile. Is Huey Fury the best win between them? Really? What has Huey Fury done and who is Huey Fury beat to be the best win between them? Hasn't Carlos Takam done more and is more experienced than Huey Fury? I would say so. So, no, I don't agree that Huey Fury is the best win between them. JD says, yes, let the man grind and get paid. You know, here's the thing about whether it's pay-per-view worthy or not. I'm always pro-fighter, so I'm happy for these warriors to get paid a lot of money. I'm happy for that to happen. But at the end of the day, it's the fans who pay the fighters, right? So the fans also have a right to decide whether it's pay-per-view worthy or not, because they're the ones spending their money. You understand what I'm saying? And if fans might like a particular fighter, let's say it's Anthony Joshua against whoever, because a lot of Anthony Joshua's fights, you know, do I really want to pay for them? do I really think this is going to be such a great fight that I want to pay for it? You know, how many of Anthony Joshua's fights were pay-per-view? I can't remember now. But most have all of his world title fights been pay-per-view? I think they have, innit? I think they've all been pay-per-view. Correct me if I'm wrong. But was Joshua versus Molina pay-per-view worthy? I would say no. Was Joshua versus Brazil pay-per-view worthy? I would say no. As a standalone fight, I don't see them as pay-per-view fights. Okay? But people are paying because they like Joshua at the end of the day. That's why people are paying, innit? That's why most of Joshua's fans are paying. But me, myself, I'm not coming from a fan perspective. I'm coming from, or not of a fan of a particular fighter. I'm coming from being a boxing fan who just wants to be entertained by whoever. And when I look at a pay-per-view, I'm looking at, okay, is this going to entertain me? On paper, is this going to be a good enough, entertaining fight whereby I want to put my hand in my pocket and pay for it? You know, so I'm not really thinking at that point about, okay, let me help the fighter out. These fighters have got more money than me. I don't need to help them out. You're like, they're doing good for themselves. They're doing much better than most of us are doing. So they're taking care of their money and all that kind of business, all right? At the point when I'm purchasing a pay-per-view, I'm thinking about my money and is it worth me putting my hand in my pocket and paying for a particular pay-per-view? Now I've paid for plenty of pay-per-views, yeah? But that's my process. I'm not thinking about, oh yeah, let me help out Joshua or let me help out Dillian Whyte and give him some money. They're paid. These guys are doing all right. You understand? The only time usually when I'm arguing in favor of a fighter in terms of finances is when it's a situation with a promoter. Yeah? Where the promoter's not paying the fighter enough because the promoter's got money too. Do you understand? The promoter's a millionaire too. So pay the fighter what you're supposed to pay him. Be fair with him. You understand? But when I'm putting my hand in my pocket to pay for a pay-per-view, my primary concern is with whether this is going to be a decent fight, whether I think this is going to be good enough and high level enough for me to actually put my hand in my pocket and pay for it. Yeah, that's my approach to it. So anyway, let's go through more here. Okay, this is some incoherent rubbish this person's typed in. Ice Chip says no, it's a nothing fight. Parker's last 2 UK fights have been poor value for money. This person says, of course it's not get real. People are turning to Americans having to pay for every fight, including these bums. These fighters are not bums. I don't know what people describe bums as. One of them is a former world champion. The other one is, top 5 in most sanctioning bodies in the world. Please explain how they're bums. Please explain. D-Bull says, yes, great fight. How can you complain? People been paying for a shot 38-year-old David Haye with one leg. And the conning Eubank 1 and Eubank 2. Why would you not pay to watch 2 young, hungry heavyweights that can fight? This person says, yes, absolutely. Don't understand why people are saying no. Can't think of many other fights in the division that are as interesting, to be honest. It is an interesting fight. It is an interesting fight. It definitely is. It is. Okay, this person says, you're pissed because he cost you on boxing. This is the kind of immature, silly comment. This just has to get to, do I sound pissed? You think I don't do polls for many other things? So every time I make a poll, it means what? That I'm pissed with the person I'm making a poll about? Honestly, man. Immature comments like that just have to get deleted, man. I can't even go back and find it. So let's move on to some other comments. Let me come on. This is I'm not petty minded. All right, so please don't project your own petty mindedness onto me. Please don't do that. All right. Great fight, simple as that. Maybe if there's a good enough undercard. All right, maybe if there's a good enough undercard. No, as much as I respect Dillian, he hasn't proven pay-per-view worthy so far in his career with Parker. Okay. No, it's good, but not pay-per-view. Yes, it's one of the best 50-50 fights in a long time. What else is here? No, because I'm mad at Dillian Whyte, Punkhouse, Dark OT. Oh my god. Listen, these Wilder fanboys are insane because they're trying to say that Dillian Whyte ducked Luis Ortiz. Dillian Whyte called Luis Ortiz out when Ortiz was with Matchroom. Why would he duck him? Dillian Whyte has been calling out Deontay Wilder for years now. Wilder beat Ortiz, right? So how is it that Dillian Whyte is not afraid of Wilder, but he's afraid of Ortiz? How does that make sense? Dillian Whyte Dillian Whyte didn't have many amateur fights. He sparred David Haye when he was an amateur with I don't know what it was, 10 fights or something, 10 amateur fights. He sparred David Haye and he did well enough in the sparring session to convince himself that he could turn pro. And I think from what I heard, someone at the session told him, you did well in there against David Haye sparring. This is when the guy was a novice amateur and he did well in sparring against David Haye. He wasn't intimidated. Then he turns over pro. He's sparring Derek Chisora. He's sparring both Klitschko's. He's sparring Tyson Fury. He's flying around the world and he's going to all these camps and he's sparring all these people. And people are saying in these camps that Dillian Whyte is a handful in sparring. So this is not a guy who has a scared kind of attitude. Right? This is a guy who fought Anthony Joshua when he wasn't really physically prepared. And yet he still went in there and he didn't show any fear against Anthony Joshua. So, come on. This foolishness that the Wilder fanboys come up with that Dillian Whyte is scared. You must be nuts. You are nuts. He's fighting Joseph Parker, who arguably is just as dangerous as Luis Ortiz, if not more dangerous. Who's the last person Luis Ortiz fought prior to Wilder that was any good? The last, guy remotely world level that Luis Ortiz fought prior to Wilder was Bryant Jennings, and that was several years ago when Ortiz was several years younger. So can we stop making Ortiz out to be like the killer of the division when who has he beat? Who has he beat? Did he look good against Dave Allen? Did he look good against Malik Scott? No. So come on, man. Dillian Whyte called him out years ago. And all of a sudden he's scared now. No, he got a better deal elsewhere, and so that's where he went. And Eddie Hearn has already said that Dillian Whyte is guaranteed to get a shot against Joshua if he stops Joseph Parker, regardless of whether it's a WBO eliminator. But there's still a chance that it will be a WBO eliminator. Certainly, Eddie Hearn and Higgins have said they're going to be requesting, putting in a request with the WBO to make it a final eliminator for the WBO title, which means that the winner would get a guaranteed shot at the WBO belt. So that is what that is. All this stuff about, all these American Deontay Wilder fanboys seem to believe that every British fighter is scared. It's such a bizarre thing to believe. It's just so bizarre because all the time that Deontay Wilder has held his WBC belt, he could have fought Klitschko. Why didn't he fight Klitschko? He could have fought Joseph Parker. Why didn't he fight Parker? Well, guess what? Anthony Joshua fought him. And who's Wilder fighting next if he don't fight Joshua? He's fighting Dominic Breazeale, somebody Anthony Joshua didn't lose a round against and smashed up in 7 rounds. And you're acting like Luis Ortiz is this beast of the division, all right? Because why? He gave Deontay Wilder a tough fight? Well, he ain't the first guy to give Deontay Wilder a tough fight, is he? Did you see the Eric Molina fight? Eric Molina gave Deontay Wilder plenty of trouble. And look what Joshua did to Molina. So this idea that all these British fighters are scared, and this is the insanity of so many Deontay Wilder fanboys. They don't know what planet they're on. They're not in touch with reality. And this is another example of that. Nonsense. Okay, this person says, yes, it's 20 pounds. And another thing on this, right? Before I end on this, Dillian Whyte is Jamaican, all right? He was born and lived in Jamaica until he was, I think, in his teenage years, 14 years old, something like that. And one thing I can tell you historically, Nicholas Waters notwithstanding, don't forget about him, but generally speaking, when it comes to Jamaican fighters who are born and raised in Jamaica, most of them are fearless. I'm telling you, most of them over the years have been absolutely fearless, these born and raised Jamaican fighters. Trevor Berbick, even though he got blasted out in 2 rounds by Tyson, he was one of the few Tyson opponents who actually wasn't scared of him. Trevor Berbick actually tried to come out in the first round and take it to Mike Tyson. It was a bad mistake, but Berbick wasn't scared of the man. He was very defiant going into the fight. He was actually quite angry about the fact that people were writing him off against Tyson. Berbick was the underdog against Tyson, despite the fact Berbick was the champion. So Berbick was one of the guys who wasn't scared of Tyson. Razor Ruddock, another Jamaican. No intimidation factor at all with Razor Ruddock. Yeah? And down the line, you look at people like Mike McCallum, Simon Brown. Most of the born and raised Jamaican fighters I've seen over the years, they are fearless individuals. That's fearless guys. Not intimidated at all. You look at Razor Ruddock going into the Tyson fights. Tyson was trying his hardest to intimidate Razor Ruddock. It didn't work. Tyson obviously beat him up both times, but in terms of being intimidated, scared, Razor Ruddock weren't scared. So that's the kind of individual you often get out of Jamaica, just fearless kind of people. And Dillian Whyte is the same. I'm telling you, the guy is not scared of Luis Ortiz. If you think he's scared of Luis Ortiz, you don't know the character of him. He's not that kind of person to be scared of. Just follow his career back. Go look at his path as a fighter from the very beginning. And tell me whether you think that's a scared guy. He's not a scared guy. What else here? Yeah, a lot of people say maybe if it's good enough undercard. Yes, yes, yes. All these people say yes. All right. So overall, as I say, relatively positive response to this pay-per-view. A few people said no, but the majority have said yes, or maybe if there's a good enough undercard. So I'd say that's positive. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, people. It's happening. I'm out.